Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, here we go. We're rolling. Friday night, Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. And so this is episode 139 of Gridiron Grinder. Every week for almost 3 years straight here, guys. And for tonight, we're going to kick it off with Name That Stadium like we always do. After that, we'll hit the news from this past week. I don't really see a whole heck of a lot. After that, we're going to hit the meat and potatoes of the show, which is going to be pre-draft AFC team needs. And last but not least, we'll close it off with our question of the week. And so, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's going good, man. It's going good. And so you know kind of the standard housekeeping part of this. If you're back, you've been here before, we appreciate the support. Thanks for coming back. If you're new, just a heads up that we bookmark everything in the description of the video. That way, if you want to bounce around, these things can get kind of lengthy. But yeah, why don't you, James, take that ball and run with it? Do name that stadium for us, man.
All right, so this is the point of the show where, as you can see, I'm traveling around to different stadiums that host NFL games. And your first person to guess it right, we'll give you an extra special shout out. If you guess it wrong, we'll give you a shout out, a regular shout out. And if you're just a chode, we might give you
Talk
some
some shit.
shade during talk some shit about you during the show. But anyway, so last week I was at Ford Field again. Every chance I get, I love to go to Ford Field. Last week we were NFC, AFC North and South for free agency recap. So hitting North, had to go to Ford Field.
Nice, man. Yeah, and you're happy with what they're doing this off season. I think it's more impactful than last year, and we saw him
Hmm.
take a big step up. And so I think that bodes well for the direction of the team. I'm happy about it too. All right, and so yeah, with naming that stadium out of the way, I do want to just pause here and provide. I'll do the super special shout out, James. We had two new subscribers this
Oh,
past week. One was anonymous, but the other, old coworker of mine, Gary Strell. Hey, thanks for joining the show, man. We hope you like what you're hearing, and definitely hit us up with some comments. And so, back to you, James. I see you had something going on there, man.
no, I thought you were saying. I was like, oh shit, I forgot to check this week to see if we got any takers. I thought that's where you were going with it. So I
No,
was like,
no,
oh
no.
shit, we had a taker. I was like, damn, I missed it.
No, it was a quiet week, but we had two new subscribers, and so I thought it'd be good to call them out. I know one of them was anonymous, but the other one, a guy I used to talk a lot of football with, and so I would bet he will take us up on Name That Stadium or even Question of the Week at some point here. I might have to give him a little nudge, but I'm going to let him know. I'm bookmarking it, so he's getting his little 15 minutes of fame here on tonight's episode, anyhow, and so yeah. But keeping it moving, why don't we do our recap of the past week? And so, James, not a ton in my notes. It seemed like a lot of puff pieces this past week. Nothing really credible, but I'll give you a few that stood out. One of them, Joe Mixon, he has been recharged with aggravated menacing. And so this is something that came up previously and it was dropped or however it worked out before. But it's back in the news now. This is a potential misdemeanor charge for him. And I didn't read the full article, so I'm not sure exactly why they decided to bring it back up and charge him again. But, obviously, this kind of thing in the NFL, there could be some, you know, suspension at some point, player conduct kind of thing coming if it turns into anything, or if it gets, sort of like dropped again like it did before, it won't matter. But worth noting because it's come back around for the second time. So,
Yeah, I saw it came back around. Like I saw it real late, and then I hadn't gone into the article. I was like, oh man, I meant to go back to it. You just reminded me of it, so I was just gonna take a look at the article. I,
yeah, check it out, man. See if you can find anything. I vaguely remember something about like his sister being involved, or maybe that was a different one. But
yeah.
um, either way, it's not good. In the Bengals. They let Samaje Perine walk in free agency. So if they lost Mixon, they'd definitely be looking kind of bare in their running back room. As long as Mixon can play, they're okay. They're going to want to get some depth though, nonetheless. But this could be a factor for them. And I mean, you've
Yes.
heard me talk
So
about it a lot. I don't think they've been running the ball enough, which is, that's a whole separate conversation. But yeah, go ahead, man.
yeah, so with Mixon, it came from when on January 21st, uh, when they were going to Buffalo, or when they're at Buffalo. I know because it was in Ohio, the charge. So they were leaving for Buffalo for the game. He allegedly pointed a gun at someone.
Okay.
And the Cincinnati Police Department statement said today the decision was reached following the discovery of new evidence during the investigative process. And that's all they said. To preserve a fair and impartial judicial process for all parties involved, no investigatory details or evidence will be disclosed outside of official court proceedings. So
Gotcha.
apparently something new came up, and they're like, "Yep, we're gonna charge him."
Yeah, I mean, who knows? In today's day and age, you got cameras everywhere. And
Hmm.
so, um, if they jumped on it quick enough, there could have been a recording, and maybe it took a little while to get. Maybe they got it now. That's, of course, just me purely speculating. But yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. The next thing I got here, James, I know in past weeks we've not been covering these as much, but I figured for tonight it's worth mentioning. Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle for the Tennessee Titans, he signed a 4-year extension worth $94 million. That's some big money. It was a nice move. I like that they locked him down. And yeah, like I was saying, the last couple weeks since we were doing the free agency recaps, we didn't really like lay out all these moves each week. We kind of just covered them as we hit those teams. But for tonight, with the news being kind of light, I thought that was a good one to throw in there.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, enough said. Next one I got is a little Kyler Murray thing, man. He was in the news. Looks like he's doing squats already, just 13 weeks after his ACL surgery. I don't know. Like I see you rolling your eyes. Anything Kyler Murray, I think between you and I, man, we get some like mixed feelings about what's going on with that guy. Um, I think it's like, hey, it's great. You're doing squats. My opinion is, are you seeking attention? Is that why, this is getting into the news or what's going on here? But I just would be cautious. It's like, hey, if your doctors and your trainers are saying you're there, that's cool. Don't rush it, man, because everybody's expecting you to be out until like November anyhow. You don't want to blow it out again and then
Hmm.
be out for like, even longer. But, I'm not a doctor. I'm not in those conversations. Just my thoughts.
It makes sense. I just I didn't see it. Like, who knows when the video was shot also, so come on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But it's good to know that he does do work
He's
outside of
not just,
practice.
yeah, he's not just playing video games.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Maybe they
geez.
did keep the 4-hour clause in his contract after all.
All right, so the last thing I got, James, is just talking about John Elway for a minute, and we'll come back to this at question of the week because I want to talk more about it. But from the news standpoint, his contract expired with the team. They have not renewed him, and so he is no longer officially on the Denver Broncos payroll. This one, like I said, we'll talk about in question of the week. He did get them a Super Bowl win as like their GM slash whatever executive position he had when he got Peyton Manning in there. It's been a train wreck ever since. Kind of a tough thing because he's a former Super Bowl winner for them as a player too. Um, I just thought it was strange the way they just kind of let the contract expire and him go. There wasn't like, I don't know. I just thought there could have been something maybe a little bit more formal. They could have handled it maybe a little bit better. But I think they just wanted it to be kind of low key and fly under the radar as best they can. And so we'll talk more about that later, man.
we'll talk more about it later. I have a little bit of a different take
Sure.
on it after doing some reading on it, but since
Oh, interesting. Okay. So yeah, maybe something I haven't heard yet. And okay. Well, news-wise, man, what else you got? What have you seen this past week?
so the only thing outside of it that I really saw, and it kind of sorry, it was because we're still talking free agency and we're starting to roll into draft, and it was the NFL comparison or NFL comp to the top five quarterback prospects.
Okay.
So, like, and some of them are like, are you fucking kidding me? That's a terrible comp. Like I wouldn't want that comp if I was that quarterback. Some of them are like, damn, that's a pretty good comp.
Okay.
So Bryce Young was NFL comparison was Drew Brees.
A size thing, I'm sure.
Size thing, ability, um, and it's like size and how they play the game.
Sure.
C.J. Stroud, his NFL comparison was Matt Ryan. Okay, that's another good one. Like, for a quarterback you want to be compared to.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people believe that CJ Stroud is far more athletic. He just didn't
Mm,
use it as much because he didn't need to.
right. I'm going over the good ones first.
Sure.
Anthony Richardson, his NFL comparison's Josh Allen. It's another
Interesting.
great.
Okay. I keep hearing Cam Newton with him, and he was doing the Cam Jackson, the mix between Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson, but that's the first I heard Josh Allen. Okay.
All right, now let's go to the not so good ones.
Okay.
Will Levis, NFL comparison, Jay Cutler.
Jay Cutler. So strong arm and that's about it.
Yes.
Okay. I saw one the other day which was Matt Stafford for him, and I thought, okay, that's interesting, but Cutler, okay, that's the spectrum for Levis.
Yeah. Hendon Hooker, number 5 prospect, his NFL comparison, and I'm sure it's not just based on this past year of this quarterback's career, Geno Smith.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't know what his was, but off the top of my head, I just thought, okay, because everybody keeps talking about how efficient he was this past year, maybe I could have seen that. That was the name that came to mind. Did they provide any commentary about it?
Um, I didn't read the full thing, but it's blah 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 blah. Uh, delivers the ball on time. Footwork is efficient and detailed. There will be a transition for Hooker as he makes the jump to an NFL style offense, and he can improve his deep ball locations and second level accuracy on end breakers.
Okay. So yeah, I've been watching a lot of these different mock drafts, and this past week I saw a couple on the quarterback side that I thought were interesting. One of them was calling for Hendon Hooker to go to Minnesota in the first round as a potential replacement for Kirk Cousins. And I thought, okay, maybe you like that efficiency and whatnot. I don't know, that his ceiling would be higher than Cousins. I think we got to just see. We just don't know. But me, I'm a big Cousins fan, and I know he's not gotten it done in big games, but that's a whole different thing. The one that I thought was interesting with the Lamar Jackson drama, one guy, and I don't even remember what website it was. I was just like fooling around on the internet. He had Anthony Richardson to Baltimore, and basically, you know, like making the comparison of, hey, freak athlete, could run the ball a ton, basically could be like the young version of Lamar, and like restart that whole thing for Baltimore. And I thought, yeah, that's interesting. And I know that the press was like really putting the heat on Baltimore this past week, trying to talk about what's going on with Lamar and they were trying to like avoid talking about that because they're looking at the draft, and
Hmm.
people were just saying, hey, if a quarterback's there, you're going to draft one because this thing with Lamar may not be settled by then, and uh, they were just kind of like typical boilerplate. Hey, we're looking for a guy that's going to help this team, and if there's a quarterback there that we think's the best person to help the team, then we're going to do it. Something to that effect, and so yeah, this guy, whoever it was, pegged Anthony Richardson going there, and I thought, okay, you're kind of keeping it consistent if you went with that style quarterback. So.
Yeah, I've seen a lot on Baltimore, like even trading up to draft a quarterback in the first round. So
Yeah.
I there's something unknown really going on there with the Lamar Jackson situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, if they could find a suitor for the trade before the draft and they get, the two first round picks. And so how does that work? Is it two first rounders? Do they have to be for this year? Can it be one this year, one next year? Do you know?
I don't know. I can do some.
It's fine. Let's just say it can be one this year, one next year. So that still puts them in a position where they have two first round picks this year. Then they're in a good spot where they could move up and, have potentially their pick I don't know. You're probably not going to get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, but you could get in the action.
Yeah. So trying to see. This player receives match it. Chooses not to not to offer an equal or greater contract, and the player transfers to another team. They are entitled to two first-round draft picks from the franchise acquiring the player.
That doesn't
Uh,
specify.
it doesn't specify.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it's not clear, I mean, hypothetically, it could be two first round picks next year.
Hmm.
Um, and that's, that obviously lowers the value of those picks, but, they could still have some draft capital to move up and get a quarterback this year if that's what they thought was the best move.
Yeah, well, I mean, in theory, it probably would be two first-round draft picks starting next year because of the fact that like they have to like June something or July something to negotiate a contract with the franchise
Lamar.
tag. So
Yeah.
with Lamar, so it probably if I'm any team, I would wait make it next year's pick anyways.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, if you're going to be the suitor, you know, you want to have your draft pick for this year and plus get Lamar, and then yeah, you can do whatever you got to do to work out the picks for next year. Because at that point, you now had Lamar for a year plus a first round pick this year to build the
Yeah,
team.
exactly. But it's just it's kind of a whole mess up situation there. Like I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, he needs a actual agent to help take care of things.
We've been saying that for how long?
Yeah.
Does he listen to us? No. So apparently
No,
he's
but
not
maybe you
he's
will.
not a
Maybe you will. Maybe
subscriber.
one of these new subscribers can get in his ear and things will change.
Heck, maybe he's one of the new
He
subscribers.
could be the anonymous guy. He could
He
be
could
the
be.
anonymous guy. He's like, shit, these Gridiron Grinder guys, man, I heard about them. I got to check them out. And now he's like, damn, they just inspired me. And he just calls frickin' Tom Condon and he's like, I need an agent, man.
Hmm.
Yeah. And if that's the case, hey, show us some love, let us know. Let us know that we inspired you. And if not, don't worry, we'll move on because we got to be real. All
Yeah.
right. So what else you got news-wise, James?
So a little bit. uh, I showed you or I sent you the video right before the show, but apparently
Oh, the puff piece. Yes.
Kelsey threw out the first pitch at a Guardians game today, and I kid you not, it's a no wonder he's not a quarterback in the NFL because he maybe threw the baseball 5 feet before it hit
Yeah.
the ground.
Yeah, because wait, wasn't he a quarterback at Cincinnati before he turned into a tight end?
Was he?
Dude, I think or maybe he was a high school quarterback and then he converted to tight end in college, but I'm
I thought
almost
I
certain
thought
he was a quarterback at one point earlier in his football playing days,
you might be right because
which
in
makes
one of
that
the
even worse, James.
in, oh, and he played baseball in high school.
Ah, jeez, it was
But
so bad.
he was he was his sophomore through senior year, he was a he was a varsity quarterback.
Okay.
And then he at Cincinnati, he played tight end and quarterback in the Wildcat formation they used.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's even worse.
Well,
Well, he was according to Rivals.com, he was a two-star recruit.
okay. For baseball?
No, for
Oh, for
football.
football. Okay.
For football, he was a two-star recruit.
Well, he's come a long way. So, but baseball is not his forte. So,
He didn't do
that's okay.
bad in high school. 1,500 yards passing, um, 1,000 yards rushing at quarterback, 10 rushing touchdowns, 21 passing touchdowns, and 8 interceptions in his senior year.
Pretty good stats, man.
Yeah, that's not bad stats, but I don't know how. Seeing what I saw, I don't know how the fuck that happened, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, he
But
probably hasn't thrown a baseball in a while. So, and maybe he thought, I still got it. And then he got out there and no, you don't.
no, because he plays in like I've seen him in like recently in celebrity baseball games or charity baseball games.
Okay. See, I've only seen him at bat for those. And so, I didn't know that they were playing like actual games or if it was more like just tee it up and crank them, you know?
Huh, you might be right. I don't think I've seen him play the field. I would think I was just drawing the assumption there, but
Yeah.
it was bad. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Well, what else do you have for the news, man?
Oh, that was about it. I just wanted to hit on a little humor there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like Kelsey, man. I like him. All right. Well, hey, let's shift it over. Let's do our pre-draft AFC team needs. And so, James, for tonight, I pretty much just kind of been building off of that same spreadsheet that I shared with you these past couple weeks, and I added into it at the bottom of each team what I think the needs are, and I used an article from NFL.com as well as an article from CBSSports.com to pretty much populate that. I kind of like married the two articles, and then I sort of like prioritized or provided commentary about where maybe I disagreed, and just kind of, give us something to elaborate on as we get into each team. And so I'm thinking you did something similar. Is that right?
I did something a little similar. I married. I forget. I forget where the second article came from because I didn't make a note of it. But I married that one, the CBS, probably the same CBS article you used, and another website, and I forget which one it was. So,
Sure. Okay. Hey, no
and then
biggie.
kind of put together like some thoughts on if I most of them like once I married it and like kind of narrowed. I think I took like one or two out, but like didn't really have much disagreement with the articles.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, and just to kind of maybe add on to it, I did pull up the lineups website, and that way it's always good to kind of just check who do they have at these positions as you're going through it. And lineups isn't like 100% up to date, and so I kind of would have to like mirror that to my spreadsheet, but it can help fill in the gap a little bit. And so yeah, I thought we'd start with the AFC East, which has the Buffalo Bills first off. Is that good with you?
It's good with me.
All right. And so James, when I looked at these two articles, the priorities that I got were wide receiver, defensive tackle, linebacker, offensive line, which was really two offensive linemen, cornerback, and safety. Of course, I scrubbed that list on my own, and I think that you could qualify the wide receiver as really being wide receiver two and maybe even a wide receiver three at that point because they've got Stephon Diggs. He's a solid wide receiver one, but they want to have some more people to throw the ball to. Um, Defensive tackle, I'm not sure they're like, hurting that bad there, but that has been a strength of this team, and they want to keep it strong. Linebacker, I think, is a bigger priority with Edmonds leaving. They would want to, and even AJ Klein, but Edmonds more so. They would want to backfill that. Um, Offensive line, I think that, in my opinion, that's a big need. Roger Saffold's gone. They did bring in a couple guys, but lower rated in the lineups world. And, we've talked about it. I mean, Josh Allen's everything to that team. You want to protect him as best you can. I would fortify that line and make offensive linemen a higher priority. Cornerback, yeah, I know that, Sean McDermott, he likes going deep in the secondary. And so cornerback and safety both on this list of priorities. I really don't think safety is a priority because they brought back Poyer. They brought in Taylor Rapp. They've got a lot of guys there, but that's like deeper on the list anyhow. So I mean, we don't have to like go too crazy on that. What did you see? Is your list fairly consistent with this, or what are your thoughts, man?
My list is fairly consistent with the exception of having running back. So I had
Okay.
interior offensive line, running back, wide receiver. I agree with you, a wide receiver two, safety, linebacker, tackle, and D line. Not specific to tackle, but D line.
Sure. So
So
yeah, and,
and,
and
and
at
running
running
back,
back they did bring in Damian Harris, but yeah, I guess you say he missed a lot of time last year, I believe. Um, you know,
see, I didn't have Damian Harris on my list of acquisitions.
okay, yeah. So Singletary's out. They brought in Damian Harris. Um,
So yeah,
and
so I missed Damian Harris on my when I did my acquisition, so I could see that. So that makes sense. They may not need a running back.
not
So
as high of a priority. Yeah, and so
hmm
I'm looking at the defensive line. They've got a lot of guys, but I could see where they would maybe want to beef it up. They got Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Jordan Phillips, Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa. Ed Oliver's an 81 on lineups. The rest of these guys are kind of like in that mid to high 70s range, and so I could see where maybe they want to bring in maybe more of like a premier defensive lineman. And so I can understand that being a priority. I still think the big priority for them is the offensive line and linebacker. The rest of these, I would say, are sort of like secondary. So, yeah, that's Buffalo. Um, Next up, James, we got the Miami Dolphins, and so when I looked at NFL.com and CBS Sports, they pumped out offensive line, running back, tight end, defensive line, not specific, wide receiver, and linebacker. Um, and this was interesting because running back being high on the list, I thought Mike McDaniel, he's got like that Shanahan type system. Does he really need a premier running back? I'm not sure that he does. I know they brought back Mostert, and I forget the other guy they got, but um, in fact, I'm going to pull it up on lineups. So they let Edmonds go. I think they kept Miles Gaskin and Mostert, and so it's like, do you really need more than that? Um, I think it'd be good, but maybe a luxury in that system because they can make those sort of like lesser talent shine just by the way they do it. I would say, I like where they have offensive linemen. I think that's been a weakness for Miami for a long time. Tua went down with injury last year. You want to protect your quarterback. You got Teron Armstead at left tackle. The rest of that line, I think they could beef up. And so I'd go offensive line. Tight end, obviously, they let Gesicki walk, so you kind of got a hole there. And then really, yeah, I mean, like you look at what happened in free agency, they lost a couple guys on the edge, and they lost John Jenkins on the defensive line. So I could see them beefing that up. Wide receiver, I don't see a need for them to go wide receiver at all. You got Tyreek Hill, you got Jalen Waddle. Anybody behind that is just depth anyhow. I think you can make a 3 and a 4 just kind of work from whatever you got in that room. But just my opinion, man. What do you think?
So I got distracted by something. Yeah, I got way distracted by something. I apologize.
That's fine. So yeah, and then even linebacker. So they lost Landon Roberts, but they brought in David Long. And that's like the lowest of the priorities on this list, so I'm not as worried about that. Yeah, I would be looking at the defensive line if I were them, and the offensive line is my top spots. Maybe beyond that, start looking at a tight end to replace Gesicki. And I think this team is back on the right path, man.
I agree with you. I think they have some. Well, anyways, move. Let's just move on to the next one.
Sure, sure. Keeping it going here. Keeping it going. All right. So then next up, we got the Patriots, man. And the Patriots, their list was actually longer than a lot of these lists when I put them together. They had defensive back, which was both cornerback and safety, offensive tackle, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, edge, and defensive line. I think for them, the one that stuck out to me was that they could deprioritize tight end. I know they lost Jonnu Smith, but they brought in Mike Gesicki, and they already had Hunter Henry, and so I don't think that tight end is really that high of a need for them. I think that the defensive back thing being the top priority, I can get on board with because Devin McCourty retired. Belichick loves having a strong secondary, and so I could see that being a good priority for them. Offensive tackle, I agree. That's also a good one to prioritize because, um, they're a run first team. Belichick likes having a strong offensive line. This is maybe the weakest we've seen it on paper in a while, and so it'd be good to beef that up. And then I agree with really a lot of these other picks. Wide receiver, they brought in Juju. That's cool, but you know, I don't know that Juju's a wide receiver one. And this is a team that's had a hard time finding wide receivers. It doesn't mean that you don't take those shots. I think you got to keep taking those shots until you address it. Um, and then really from there, linebacker, edge, defensive line. Um, I think like this list has it, those are good secondary needs. They're not as high priority, but definitely good to stack that defense, man. What do you think?
So yeah, so like offensive tackle, I think is probably like the biggest priority there. From what I'm reading, they're not sold on their quarterback, so that's the interesting wrinkle there is like they have all these other needs, and yet they're considering moving on from their quarterback.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to make a note of that because yeah, if Mac Jones is on his way out, then quarterback is a way higher priority.
Yeah, but I mean, they wide receiver they signed Schuster, no big deal. I don't think safety Jabril Peppers. I don't think that moves the needle enough for what Belichick likes to do. I agree with you. Linebackers where that's where Belichick really likes to have um, the talent, and with McCourty retiring.
I concur. I concur. All right. Next up, then we've got the New York Jets here, James. and I'm just pulling them up on lineups as I go through this. So for the Jets, my notes are two offensive linemen, a defensive tackle, a safety, a tight end, and a linebacker. This is another one where I thought tight end, not that much of a need for them. They're not stacked like New England is at tight end. I'm not going to say that, but they've got Tyler Conklin, homie from Central Michigan, and CJ Uzoma, formerly from the Cincinnati Bengals a couple years ago. I think both those guys are more than capable of being a great 1-2 punch at tight end. And Uzoma should be healthy this year. He was coming off injury last year, had to work through some of that. I don't see tight end being a big deal, but looking at some of these other ones, I think offensive line for sure they should prioritize. They lost four guys in free agency, and maybe not studs, maybe not all starters, but still, especially if you're going to bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, make that move, you got to protect him. And so I'd prioritize the offensive line. You got Robert Saleh, a defensive-minded guy, defensive tackle being the second priority. I like that. Sheldon Rankins left. Beef up that defensive line. Keep it as strong as frickin' possible. If you're a defensive-minded guy, you want to do that. Safety, I don't really see that being a priority for them. They made that trade for Chuck Clark, and I'm just checking my notes here. So they still got Will Parks. They still got Ashton Davis. I'm not sure that they're, hurting for a safety, but, if you want to get maybe more of like a premier guy, I say go for it. And then at linebacker, Quan Alexander's gone. Yeah, I could see them getting better at linebacker. I think most teams in the league could get better at linebacker, but uh, in fact, I might make linebacker a higher priority than safety and tight end. So,
So, so for them, I think for the Jets, I think it's more of an edge slash linebacker they need.
okay.
Um, in their offense, not an inside linebacker, but more of an outside linebacker or defensive end. Either one of those would work. They defensive line definitely, especially after losing Rankins and Shepard, and they brought in Solomon Thomas, but they have some work to do there. They only brought in. I think I would add wide receiver to the list because the only wide receiver of note they brought in was Lazard, which does not move the needle for me. And I think they had,
Yeah, they traded Elijah Moore.
yeah, they
Um,
traded Elijah Moore, and they
they're
had a bunch of nobodies. I'm double checking it because I'm I
So
know
yeah, I
I
mean,
got missed
Garrett
something.
Wilson looked good as a rookie. They still have Corey Davis as depth, and then yeah, you bring in Lazard. But yeah, I mean, yeah, especially if you're going to get a legit quarterback, nothing wrong with having another wide receiver in that room.
Yeah, and with I also because the trade is not finalized, I have quarterback on the list because until that trade is finalized, they still don't have a starting quarterback.
Yeah, I like that. I'm making a note.
Which is kind of where I went with it. I can't assume that they're gonna sign Rodgers. All
Yeah,
signs
he's not there
point or
yet. I
trade
got
for
you.
him.
Yeah,
Trade for him. All signs point to it, but there's no
hasn't
certain.
happened yet. Yeah. All right, so let's move on over to the AFC West, and I don't know. You want to take the lead on these ones, and then I'll provide. I'll fill in the gap with my commentary. I don't want to be the only one taking the lead here.
Oh no, you're fine. I was trying to do do the AFC West because I forgot to change it, put it by division. So I was trying to do it alphabetically in my head.
Oh,
Which
all
one
right. Well,
is the
yeah, I
first thing?
got
So
Denver
no, I got it.
Broncos first.
Denver. Yeah, I was like, I know there's one before KC, and then so I had to kind of look at the list and find
Sure.
it. So
Yeah, yeah.
sorry. So for the Denver Broncos, I have them needing they need edge, they need offensive line, inside and tackle, linebacker, defensive line. Why did I thought they had
They
signed.
brought in Zach Allen.
Yeah, that's right. And they brought in McGlinchey.
Yep, on
But I
the
think that,
offensive line. Yep.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I'm them, I would stack that offensive line. It was so bad last year.
Yeah, so they brought in McGlinchey and they brought in Ben Powers, linebacker. They brought in Singleton, but I think offensive line they still need it, especially how Russ looked last year. I have them needing cornerbacks.
Yep. So Ronald Darby's out. I could
Yeah,
see
Darby's
them
out,
needing some
and
help at corner. Yep.
so
And
all I
Kareem
have is
Jackson's out at safety. Yep.
yep, I have that one too. Um, but outside of that, I really liked the list that I saw on both of them. And for the interior offensive line, they need both center and guards.
Yeah. 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 And, how much of that was just Hackett not being the right coach and maybe those guys just not fitting in right with what he was trying to do? I don't know because, like, when you looked at them on paper, they really didn't look like that bad of a unit. But either way, I do like they brought in Ben Powers. I like McGlinchey a lot. I would still try to get at least one or two other guys just to try to make it as strong as possible. And then hopefully, these guys will all gel and fit better with the new scheme and it'll alleviate that mess. The list I had, the one that kind of stuck out to me was between NFL.com and CBS Sports. They had running back as the third priority, and that one I didn't agree with because you've got Javonte Williams coming back healthy. They brought in Samaje Perine to be their backup there. I know Edmonds is gone, but still, I think that that's a really strong 1-2 punch. I
Mhm.
wouldn't worry about running back, but yeah, I like all the other ones that you broke down here for us, James.
Yeah, so I had their top or number one priority as an edge rusher.
Yeah, so it could be a linebacker, could be yeah, and I'm good with that because Denver for a number of years now on paper has been very weak at like a true linebacker position. But if you get a guy that's like playing that outside linebacker edge rusher guy, that could fit the bill.
Yes.
All right, so
So
next up on the list is the Kansas City Chiefs, man. What you got there?
so this is where I went a little bit rogue off of the CBS list and the other lists I did because the combined total needs that the lists I came across had was edge, offensive tackle, wide receiver, D line, tight end, safety, and running back. And I don't know what the fuck they're thinking on tight end, um,
Yep, my list
but
had tight end as well.
but so tight end, that's not really a need. They have guy what's his name? Oh, Travis Kelsey.
Yeah, I
That's
think we
right.
were talking about him
Um,
earlier.
yeah. Uh, the only position that was on that list that I had is I had them because they kind of address a couple of these needs in trades and free agency. They signed a receiver that's also going to be this week. Who did they sign?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. I didn't have him signing a wide receiver, at least not one that hit my radar. You know.
Yeah, it happened like today,
Okay,
and
that might be why.
but either way, they have Sky Moore who's going to develop Kadarius Toney and Scantling.
Yeah,
Get? Who did they get? It was an ex Giant.
wasn't Kenny Galladay, was it?
Oh no, it's they it was Richie James.
Okay.
So what they look like they're doing is they lost Smith Schuster and Hardman, however you say it, but they brought in at they have their Valdez Scantling, um,
Yeah, I
Richie
think
James with
Kadarius
Bets,
Toney has potential. Sky Moore has
Darius
potential.
Tony, like they're not going to bring in another draft. Like if you're drafting a wide receiver, like they already basically have their top three set, and I mean their backups are young guys, and Richie James will take over Sky Moore's return game duties, so Sky Moore can be more potential. So that's where I thought the wide receiver need was for them
Sure.
was like that. There was depth that could be in the return game. Um, Defensive line, I agreed with. They
Yeah,
lost uh,
yeah. Frank Clark's out, you
Frank
know,
Clark. Thank you.
and a lot of them. I mean, Carlos Dunlop's gone, Kalen
Yeah,
Saunders gone, Brandon Williams gone. They did bring in Derek Anati. I like that. And
yeah, but
Charles Amenahu, I like that. But yeah, I think
so
they
so
need at
I
least one more guy there.
I broke it out defensive line and edge.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Same here. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I
so
got you.
Amenahu, Charles Amenahu
Yes.
is who they brought. However, I just was making fun of the name. I think they need a
Amena who? No, he
Amenahu.
he he had a good year with the 49ers last year, I believe. So
Yeah,
I think that was a
yeah, and
good
they
signing.
with at offensive tackle they brought in Jawan Taylor to try to
Yeah,
backfill
still a
Brown.
step down from Orlando Brown, but
It's just anybody's a step down from Orlando
yeah,
Brown. So I think with what they have, they see what they have for offensive tackle. I don't have that as a real need in this draft. I have safety as a need because they lost Thornhill, um,
yeah.
and
And they
I
did bring in Mike Edwards, but
but
yeah, Thornhill had a really good year for him last year.
yeah. So I actually have their top need as especially at the end of the first round with safety or secondary help.
Okay.
And then after that it'd be like edge, D line.
Yeah,
Meh.
yeah.
Safety or D line would be interior defensive line would be the top two priorities. I struggle with what order to put it in.
Okay. Yeah, and so on my list, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but mine had running back towards the bottom of the list. Um, and it also had tight end like yours did. I think tight end, if you're going to go tight end, you're going for development for a guy to play number two to Kelsey because anything can happen. A guy could get hurt. You want to have depth there. I get that. I think maybe a lot of their offense revolves around him. And so they're thinking, hey, we really need to have a guy that's capable to back him up in case something does happen. But at running back, I like the Isaiah Pacheco guy. I think that this is more about they do need some depth at running back because Ronald Jones is gone, Jerick McKinnon's gone, even their fullback Michael Burton's gone. Maybe this is the year that Clyde Edwards-Helaire finally shows up and does something. Even then, you'd only really have that 1-2 guy there. I would probably bring in a third running back to compete as part of that committee, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I could give you that, but I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where that priority is at running back. I think like
It's
the
still
running,
lower. It's still lower.
yeah, I think it's a
Yeah.
lot lower.
Yeah, and you could get good quality running backs in the middle of the draft all day. So I definitely wouldn't be going round 1, 2, anything like that. Um, yeah, I think, if I had to prioritize these, I would still like to see them find a true wide receiver one. Um, I could see Tony and Sky Moore being great twos or threes this year. I'm just not sure that either one of them is really going to step up, be that one. Valdez Scantling, he's not like really ever been a one or anything close to it. But I think that, they can get away without it because they can operate as Kelsey basically being that top receiving target, and then
Hmm.
these guys all playing second fiddle. So that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Um, Defensive line, I think that ended up being a huge factor for them in the playoffs last year. They had some strong defensive line play. It'd be good to see them making sure they keep that fortified. And then obviously, it really all revolves around Patrick Mahomes. So keep him upright, keep him healthy. Even if you think your top five are good, it doesn't hurt to get another offensive lineman in that mix because guys go down, man. All right, that's all I got.
All
Raiders are
right,
next, Tommy.
Raiders are next. So Raiders need, and you're gonna laugh at this one. They need a quarterback. They need offensive tackle, interior offensive line, cornerback, defensive line, edge, linebacker, and safety
Everything
help.
under the sun.
So let's just go with what they don't need. They don't need wide receiver, and they need a tight end because
Yeah,
they
Waller's gone.
Waller's gone.
Yep.
They don't need. So what the Raiders don't need: wide receiver, running back, punter, kicker, or long snapper.
Okay. All right. I got you. Yeah, man, that's a lot. So my opinion, their highest priority, even though the list I have puts it at cornerback, I think the highest priority is offensive line, and I think you got to take at least two shots on that offensive line.
I 100% agree with you. That's where I had the highest priority at for them. Was offensive line.
And so you
They're
think Jimmy G, you got to get another quarterback, you know, for whatever reason. He gets hurt. He's just not good enough long term. Because what did they sign him for? A 3-year deal?
Yeah, I think he's really a stopgap. He always gets hurt. They're going to need somebody. They're going to need somebody more consistent there. Yeah, he played his best under with McDaniels as his offensive coordinator. I'm going to add to the list that they need a coach.
Yeah.
Saying that, I
Real
I
coach.
yeah, I just it's surprising how far of a drop off this team made in a year.
Yeah, I mean, where are the big drops? You got Derek Carr, you got Darren Waller, you got Denzel Perryman, even Jayon Brown at linebacker. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. Rocky Sin at cornerback. Deron Herman at safety. He was a little bit one-dimensional, I think, but better than people maybe give him credit for. Um, yeah, it's tough, man. And I think like the offensive line thing is something that they did last year that they just never fixed. And so
Mhm.
that's like a lingering problem that they got away um, with what's his face just running his balls off all year. How he did that with such a shitty line, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't count on it again. And so, yeah, I think offensive line big time. They've always had a problem at cornerback. That's something that I think is a high priority. And then defensive line, it's always good to build from the trenches. And so, like, when you got this many needs, James, it's like offensive line, defensive line all day, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, exactly. I think offensive line is their number one priority. Where they're drafting, they're going to be tempted to pick one of those quarterbacks, but I really think they should trade out of where they are and trade down because you can get some good offensive linemen later in the draft and again just get more capital from them. From
So I'm just looking here because Garoppolo. So yeah, they brought in Hoyer to be a backup, but that's really just to teach guys the system because Hoyer, very smart, definitely should not. You don't want him hitting the field, but Garoppolo. The thing I want to know is it's a 3-year, $72 million contract. That's 24 a year, man. That's just too much for a backup. But I guess if you draft a guy and you draft a guy with the expectation that Garoppolo's really your top guy this year, while you develop the rookie, you could have them both next year in just whoever's the best man gets the job. And then Garoppolo probably gets cut after that. I bet his guaranteed money doesn't go past year two. Um, and then, yeah, then you could have the guy that would be the rookie this year going into his third year for sure being the guy. And if he's not, then you got to take another strike at a quarterback. Then I'd be fine with that. I mean, there's nothing. If you don't have a quarterback, you should be taking as many swings as you can. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what they should do is they should get out of the number 7 pick and get assets because they need too much to be drafting so high and not.
Yeah. I mean, well, could you see them taking Levis? at 7.
I I think they'd be stupid to take Levis at 7. I think Levis is probably could get him somewhere around 15.
Okay. I'm just saying as, an ideal developmental guy because
Yeah.
you got Jimmy G. Levis has the frickin' monster cannon of an arm. If you could get him to get up to NFL level, the arm definitely is NFL level.
See, I would rather get Hendon Hooker than Levis because I think Hendon
Okay.
Hooker has a higher ceiling, and he's coming off an injury, so you can bide your time with the injury, and like you have a
Gotcha.
year or 2 years where while he's getting up to speed, and then year three is when he comes onto the scene and you just slide Jimmy G to backup in year three.
Sure. Yeah, and so I guess I don't ever read as much about Hendon Hooker compared to these other guys. What do they say about his arm strength in comparison to these guys?
Oh, you made me. I had closed the. Give me a second. I
Yeah,
will.
I mean, I'm just curious because I mean we know Richardson's got a freaking crazy strong arm.
Mhm.
Levis has got a crazy strong arm, and then you look at like Stroud. He's legit. It's not like elite strength, but it's he's NFL level. Um, but yeah, it's like some of these other guys I'm not as sure about. So
Yeah. So it's slowly considering loading. So draft. Why? There we go. There it is. I'll just read you the quick and dirty buzz on it once I get into the draft. Best
sure.
quick and dirty hits on Hendon Hooker. From what I remember, he's from seeing him and watching him in college. He's fairly accurate. Um, and
Yeah, I mean I gotta believe the accuracy and the decision making's pretty top notch. It's just can he make those out throws that you need to be able to make in the NFL? Like that's the one you hear a lot about at the combine. They're like, can the guy throw that out with some velocity? Because those are the balls that get picked off all day in the NFL.
all right, so he's an elusive quarterback with good agility, but not elite top end speed. He shows good touch and leads his receivers to yards after the catch in the quick end. He shows good touch and trajectory on the deep ball and usually gives receivers the opportunity to go up and make plays on the ball. The biggest knock in terms of his accuracy is his timing and ball placement on anticipatory throws.
Okay.
He doesn't have elite arm strength, but shows the ability to fit the ball into some tight spots. He's running threat from inside the pocket. He's agile enough to elude defenders and extend plays. However, an area of his game that needs to improve is consistency of his pocket presence. He doesn't always sense pressure in time and also tends to bail out of clean pockets too early.
Gotcha.
So a lot of that is coachable. He doesn't have the elite arm, but he does what we were talking about, like Stafford didn't do, and
Yeah, the
Richardson
touch.
doesn't appear to do. He has the touch on the deep ball to where he gives his
Yeah.
receivers a chance to go up and get it.
Yeah, touch is huge, especially in the NFL, man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And what source were you using for that? I'm just curious.
That was I the quickest source was ESPN.
Okay. Well, that's good to know because yeah, like a lot of the like I like going to the ESPN draft section and looking at the best available. And as I was checking it this week, I was kind of bummed out because a lot of the profiles they have on these guys are from last year still. They haven't done updates going into the draft yet. And then some of them are not even there. And it's like, man, that's the shit I like reading these couple weeks going into the draft, but it just it's lagging, or at least it has been up until this past week as I've checked it last. So
So what you have to do is like if you go into the best available, you
yeah.
actually have to click the player.
Yeah, click on their name. Yeah. But so here, let me go to one and I'll give you an example. All right. So best available. And let's see if I want to look at today, Junior. Sucking up all my bandwidth here. Skyping it. same time as I'm trying to do this. All right, come on, come on, come on, come on. All right, so if I go to Tyree Wilson, oh, I got to sign in, and I don't have my password with me. But so when I was checking Tyree Wilson's like the other day, uh, it had for the status report, it was like something from, you know, pre-2022 season. And so I'm looking for something like, hey, tell me what it's been now that you've seen that
Yeah.
season and we're going into the draft, you know?
You're right. It does happen to be that. That is very disappointing.
Yeah. And it's like that with a lot of guys. A lot of them that I've checked, I'm like, oh, come on, man. You know, ESPN used to be on top of that, like crazy on top of that.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, and I don't know how it changed with ESPN over the years. I know I'm going on a tangent here, but they used to get all of that through Scouts Inc. And I don't know how it works now, if it's all the same, but you know, the website's changed a lot since the Scouts Inc. days and whatever else. But it just seems like these last two seasons or so, they're just not doing a good job updating that data. And it's like still like in that player profile, it has like 40-yard dash, it has like certain combine stats. They used to have that in there. Now, if they have it in there, it's just an estimate. It's not the actual combine figures. And that drives me nuts too, because we know that data is available.
Hmm.
But that's okay. Back to the task at hand, my friend. We got the Los Angeles Chargers next, James.
Before
Oh,
we go on,
okay.
I want to tell you that in 2 seasons at Tennessee, he threw 58 touchdowns and 5 interceptions.
Yeah, that's a heck of a spread, man.
Um,
That's like Aaron Rodgers-esque at the
yeah,
college level, of
his
course.
biggest drawback is he's 25.
Yep. But, you know, with the longevity that quarterbacks can have in the NFL, I'm not worried about that because he's not making his game on his legs like Lamar Jackson is, where you got to worry about when does he slow down or get hurt. You know, if he's an efficient pocket passer, he could play for 15 plus years. You just never
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, okay, we can move on to the formerly known as the San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yes.
So this is where the lists, CBS and the other lists I use, went a little haywire, and I thought, what the fuck is that? Like
Okay.
one of the lists I had wide receivers their number one need.
Same here. Yeah, maybe because Keenan Allen like just had some ghost injury all last year. I don't know.
Um, they need, but so my list, as it turned out, is they need linebacker help or edge, linebacker edge,
Sure.
one of the two. I don't think that's good. I think they need edge more than linebacker. They need another offensive tackle. They need some D-line help, and they need a safety. And outside of that, it's more depth at like running back, wide receiver,
Yeah.
cornerback.
Yeah, I mean, you got this stuff going on with Eckler now. You know, yeah, I get that. Um, so Herbert got hurt last year. The offensive line was an issue. I
Hmm.
would definitely make offensive line a higher priority.
But let's be fair. How Herbert got hurt was not from within the pocket. Herbert got hurt on a scramble play.
Okay, okay. Um, I'm still just gonna say
I agree.
I
I
would.
I, I was they need
Yeah,
they need offensive line help. Yes, I agree. But I'm not blaming the off. I'm
yeah.
saying be
I'm
careful
just
blaming the offensive line for Herbert's injury.
yeah. I'm just saying just protect him as best as possible. I
Hmm.
guess that's all I'm gonna say. And it's like look at Kansas City just won a Super Bowl. The big thing was they beefed up the offensive line after Tampa Bay embarrassed them. And, the Chargers need to be thinking, hey, if this is our guy and we're running it through him, keep him as safe as possible. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
The wide receiver thing, James, yeah, I was unsure of why it was so high with Keenan Allen and Michael Williams or whatever, Mike Williams. But Keenan Allen did miss a lot of time, and it was kind of wishy-washy why he wasn't playing, and so I could see the need to just have another guy there to be safe. I don't know if I would have it be the top need. Um, but yeah, I would say for them it's really offensive line, and then I would go like anything on defense because that's really what's been holding them back from getting over the
Hmm.
hump.
I agree.
All right, so that gets us through the AFC West here. Let's go on to the AFC South next. That sound good, man?
That sounds good.
All right, we got first up Houston Texans. You want to take the lead?
Oh, I'll take this. What did Houston need? Houston is so devoid of talent, they almost need everything.
Everything in the kitchen sink?
So I narrowed it down to the top 7 needs, and I will put this in order of what they need. They need a quarterback. They need wide receiver help. They need an edge. They need interior defensive line. They need offensive tackle. They need interior offensive line. They need a tight end. They need a cornerback, a linebacker. So they don't need a running back, safety, place punter, kicker, or long snapper.
Uh, yeah, I like the running back room. I like the running back room.
Yeah, I like the running back room there. That's about it. Cornerbacks, like obviously they could get better cornerback, linebacker play, but I think the linebacker play is more of the edge they need, not the
Sure.
interior linebacker. They need. Um,
Yeah, because they did bring in Denzel Perryman, but he's kind of like more of a two-down guy at this part of his career.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I like the way you broke that down. In fact, I mean I like it a lot. I would say my list had center a little bit higher, um, but even then it was like the fourth priority on my list. Um, yeah, I mean these guys they got to get the quarterback, they got to get a wide receiver for the quarterback to throw to. Even if Robert Woods bounces back this year, because last year he was coming off that injury. Um, he's really not a number one, and so you got to get a number one for this quarterback. I love they brought in Dalton Schultz because that's quarterback's best friend for a rookie. But yeah, no, I think you broke it down, man. They've got a lot of needs, and yeah, I don't know. Like, are they closer on offense or are they closer on defense? If you get the quarterback, are you closer on offense or are you closer on defense?
Hmm.
Probably defense. I don't
Yeah.
know. And you got a
It's,
defensive minded head coach now. So I, I guess, that's always my concern with a rookie head coach is that if you're a defensive guy and you go offense in the draft, I feel like you're falling into a trap. I think for them, you kind of have to address the quarterback, but it's like then load up on defense, man, because that's what DeMeco Ryans is good at. Hopefully you got a good offensive coordinator that can coach up your rookie quarterback. But I would be putting as much into that defense as possible because I think that's where he can make his hay, man.
mhm.
All right, we got the Colts next.
All right. So the Colts, I think the Colts did a good job in free agency, and they addressed quite a number of their needs. I actually see their main needs on offense.
Okay.
Obviously, number one need is quarterback. They need a wide receiver. They need an offensive tackle. Well, they need a whole offensive line, like any position at the offensive line. Let's just
Yeah, everything except Quentin Nelson.
yeah, exactly. And I think they need a corner back.
Okay.
And I don't. I think the quarterback. I think quarterback, offensive line, wide receiver, then cornerback is the priority list there. I think they've done a good job addressing the needs at edge, interior defensive line, linebacker, um, in free agency.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so I'm looking at it, and my list, I would say it had linebacker at the bottom of the list. And I think with Bobby Okereke leaving, however you say his name, I would make linebacker a higher priority for the Colts. I know they got Shaq Leonard, but he did nothing last year. I know he was out a lot. Um, I think you got to beef up that linebacker spot somewhere. Quarterback, yeah, I think what you're saying for sure is offensive is probably the priority, and they do still have Jonathan Taylor, and so it's like, listen, if you're drafting a quarterback, you better beef up that offensive line because you want to keep that guy safe and develop him, but you also have a rare talent at running back that if you can give the guy some daylight, he's going to keep you in some games. He's going to open up that offense, and so. Um, I would make that a higher priority. And then yeah, Stephon Gilmore's out, so they do need a top cornerback to come in. Um, Man, this Colts team, dude, they need a lot, man. They've fallen apart really this
Hmm.
last year they fell apart is what happened.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Next up we got the Jags, James.
All right, so the Jags, their number one priority is offensive tackle, interior offensive line. They have a lot of gaps there with the rookie quarter or not rookie quarterback with the young quarterback. They need to address those gaps. They one of the lists like had tight end. I don't know how the fuck somebody thinks they need a tight
Purely
end.
as a backup
It
position.
purely
My
as a
list had
backup.
tight end also. Yeah.
Yeah. After offensive line, I think they need secondary help with
Yeah.
at both positions, corner and safety. Um, I think that's should be offensive line and then corner and safety should be their priorities in the draft. I think they might have a tangential need at edge or defensive line, but I don't see that as a high of a priority as the other positions.
Okay. Yeah, I might bump Edge a little bit higher just because I thought Arden Key was finally coming around and they let him go. And but that's okay because I guess they're expecting more out of Trayvon Walker this year. So,
Hmm.
maybe that's fine. You know, I guess my list had cornerback at the top. And I know that Shaq Griffin is gone. I would probably put offensive line above that, but I would have them be similar at the top of my list.
Hmm.
Um, I guess my question more for them is, does it concern you at all that they've been this quiet in free agency? Because really, like the only 68 or higher signing, according to lineups, is Dearness Johnson at running back. Everything else has been departures, man.
Yeah, I'm I'm not surprised because they spent a lot last year in free agency and it just got them to the second round of the playoffs. And
Yeah,
I
and
think it's
they're getting Calvin Ridley back this year.
yeah.
That'll help. Man, it just seems like they need like one or two more moves in here, just to kind of keep it going and then fill in with the draft. I think I don't know. I think they're coming up shy here so far, but we're talking about the draft, and that's fine. I think cornerback could be an issue for them. Without Shaq Griffin, they need a top corner. They're going to have to find it somewhere. They obviously didn't get it in free agency. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'm good with that list. All right, last team in the South, we got the Tennessee Titans, man.
Okay. Um, the Tennessee Titans don't need a running back.
I don't know. Both the lists I looked at had running back on it.
Um, don't need a cornerback. Don't need a safety. Don't need a kicker. Don't need a punter, and don't need a long snapper. Every other position they need, including quarterback.
Okay.
I think top priority is, and this is also because I haven't seen and I don't remember Taylor Lewan signing anywhere.
No, I don't remember seeing him sign anywhere. No, they let him walk or released him or however it worked with him. I know they brought in Andre Dillard at tackle, but they need help on the offensive line.
Yeah. And that's but with it, they need like everything. I think the top
Yeah.
priority is the offensive line. You have the beast of the running back that you need to keep healthy, that you're going to build this team around. I think second priority is wide receiver,
Yep.
and I'm including tackle and interior offensive line in the same in the first number one priority. I think they do need an edge, a good edge still, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So offensive line, then quarterback, then receiver, then edge should be their priorities.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was funny. My list had running back sort of like in the middle, and I thought, man, I put linebacker or edge way above running back.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think for them it's two solid offensive linemen. I know they went out and drafted Treylon Burks last year, a wide receiver. Even if he stepped up and became a one this year, and I'm not saying he can or will, they got like nobody else at wide receiver, man. They need help there, but I get it. It's all about Derrick Henry, so beef up that offensive line and let him do his thing. And then maybe at some point it's a little bit about Malik Willis too. If Tannehill's not the future, same thing. You want to be able to protect him. So offensive line all day. I did like they brought in Sean Murphy Bunting, but I don't know. I think that their secondary does need some help still. I guess I need to look at this list and see who else they have in the secondary.
I was just
I'm just
opening it.
pulling it up right now. Okay, so they still got Buster Screen, Christian Fulton, Caleb Farley, oh, Kevin Byard, okay, and Amani Hooker. So yeah, they're probably good at safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel better about that secondary. That's fine. Yeah, I think, get some help at linebacker, get some help on the edge. Um, those are after offensive line and wide receiver or around wide receiver. That's how I'd look at it.
It makes complete sense to me.
Okay, homie, you want to take us over to the AFC North?
All right, here we go with the AFC North. My list is running under the assumption that they need to replace Lamar
Okay.
for Baltimore.
Yeah, so that what puts quarterback at one.
It puts quarterback at 2
Oh,
because I think they can get by with Huntley for a year and see what they have
okay.
in him. Give him a year, full year starting, do a full assessment on him. But they need
I mean,
the
he was a Pro Bowler, James.
I'm actually gonna rephrase that. I put quarterback at 4 on
Okay.
that. I put wide receiver, cornerback, edge, quarterback, running back, safety, and interior offensive line as their needs. I think that running back, because they kind of don't have.
Yeah,
They
I mean, they
have
got
Dobbins.
Dobbins, but
Dobbins has been getting hurt a lot. Outside of Dobbins, they really don't have that much.
yeah, and
Um,
Dobbins has been boomer bust when he's healthy too.
exactly.
Yeah, I would love to see them add a solid running back, even though my list had it at the bottom of their priorities for like their seven that it has listed.
Hmm.
I would bump that up because you know that if Lamar is out at quarterback, you're going to need someone else to help on offense. And so why not stack that running back room just to give you some balance there?
Hmm. Exactly.
I like that. My list has wide receiver as the top need. I'm not sure I agree with that. It depends on what they do with quarterback, but it's they've not had like a really good wide receiver one in a long time. And so if you're moving away from Lamar, it's going to be important. It's just a matter of, where do you put it in the priority list? Um, and then this has been a defensive team for a long time, and they're losing Calais Campbell, Justin Houston, Jason Pierre-Paul. I go edge big time for that defense, man. Find some guys that can get to the quarterback, maybe a little bit multifaceted, can do different things with Harbaugh and whatever else. Um, yeah, and then even cornerback with Kyle Fuller and Marcus Peters leaving, you need help there. And Chuck Clark's gone at safety. Yeah, man, Baltimore's got a lot of needs, man. It's but but we talked about this last week. I was just trying to think if it was last week or the week before. Historically, they've been very good at finding and developing talent. And so even though it looks like they've got a ton of holes, they typically fill these in ways that, aren't as obvious to us from the outside looking in. And so I've got some faith, but it does look like they got a lot of holes to fill.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we got the Bengals.
Oh, I forgot about the Bengals. I went to Cleveland. All right, so the Bengals, both of my lists that I came up with had tight end on the list, and I disagree there because that's more of a depth thing.
Sure. You think Irv Smith's going to be the guy?
Yeah. Well, no, they still have. Oh no. The Bengals do need a tight end. Now I'm conflating the two.
Yeah, see, I'm worried about Irv Smith, but
yeah, offensive tackle was on both lists, but I completely disagree with that because they just signed. Yeah.
I would still do something on the offensive line, but
offensive line, yes, but not tackle.
Yeah,
they need guards.
Yeah, and I guess it depends what happens with Jonah Williams. Is he going to agree to go to right tackle? If he does, I think they're in great shape, but I would still get one interior guy.
Yeah. So I have their number one priority as interior offensive line.
There you go.
Number 2 priority as cornerback.
Okay.
Number 3 priority as safety.
Okay.
Number 4 priority is edge. And 3 and 4 you can intermix those.
Sure.
Like you could flip those and I'd be fine with it. And those are their major priorities I see this year.
Gotcha.
Or major needs.
Yeah. No, I'm good with that. The list that I had from NFL.com and CBS Sports had offensive line, tight end, running back, safety, cornerback, defensive line, edge. And it just stuck out to me because I thought safety for sure should be above running back. Cornerback should, in my opinion, be above running back. And I would probably even put both of those above tight end, even though Hayden Hurst, he was actually a really good chain mover for them last year. And so I wouldn't just neglect tight end. I think they got to find it, but they did lose a lot on that defense. And then the running back thing is maybe a wild card. So it's 3 on my list. But, if Mixon's going to play and he's coming back and he's healthy, which he looked good last year, I would drop running back lower and just say, hey, you need some depth. Draft some guy, 3rd, 4th round, whatever it's going to be. Prioritize these other positions. If you look into the Mixon thing and it looks like there could be a problem there, I boost running back a lot higher on this list.
Yeah, I agree.
I just think this team, they've done nothing but pass the ball, and they need to have some balance on offense instead of putting it all on Joe Burrow. Not that he can't carry it, it's just those good teams can do a little bit of both, All right, Cleveland's next, bud.
All right, Cleveland. So I saw most of Cleveland's needs, with the exception of, I think offensive tackle is a huge need for them.
Okay.
I think that wide receiver is probably, so I think offensive tackle is the number 1 need. I think they need an edge guy that's going to be good on the opposite side of what's his face? Miles Garrett. Thank you. I was like Miles. So I think they need that opposite guy. Either it's an edge or an outside linebacker. I think they need a wide receiver 2.
Yep. Well, they did make the trade for Elijah Moore. and so maybe
I
he can
forgot
be
about that.
that too.
I forgot about that. Maybe he can be that too. So I think they need depth at running back,
Yeah.
and I think they need safety help.
Okay. Yeah, and so John Johnson, Ronnie Harrison are gone. They did bring in Juan Thornhill, so that does help at safety.
Yeah, I think the safety help is more of a depth thing.
Sure. Yeah. I think yeah, when I look at my list, I think linebacker is maybe the biggest deficiency, and that was like a big problem for that defense last year. But I do think they should get a complementary piece for Myles Garrett on the defensive line, like you're saying as well. And so I'd put those two at the top. Um, the offensive line, man, I'm hit and miss on it because it did look down last year, but on paper, fuck, their offensive line is still pretty solid. Um, and then, yeah, running back, I love Chubb, but you got to have some depth. They did lose Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson. I guess it's just where do you put that in the priority list, knowing that Watson's a bit of a mobile quarterback, and you know that he's going to take some of those carries from those backup running backs anyhow. It's still important to have, though. Still important to have.
All right.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Then we move on to Pittsburgh.
We might as well.
And I'm going to say what Pittsburgh's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 need is. Offensive line.
Is it 5 or is it 4? Because they did sign Isaac Samalo. Probably still
It's
5
like
because you need a swing guy.
it's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like all their draft picks this year should be offensive line and just keep throwing darts at it because
Yeah.
the only way that Pickett and Najee Harris are going to succeed is if they have the offensive line.
Yeah, it does blow my mind that and honestly, they've been weak at offensive line for a number of years now.
Outside of offensive line, they do need corner back help. They do need some defensive line, linebacker, edge help, and a number 2 wide receiver because it looks like Pickett, or did I flip those? Pickens is the wide receiver. Pickens looks like he could be a number 1, and I think they need number 2, a solid number 2 wide receiver. Otherwise, teams are just going to focus on Pickens and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just here because they still have Deontay Johnson, don't they? I think that helps them at wide receiver. Um, it doesn't hurt to get wide receiver help, though. Um, yeah, my list is all about offensive line, but it really only puts one spot on there. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. It's multiple offensive linemen is what they need. And then I think cornerback is probably a high one too, maybe their second one. I know they brought in Patrick Peterson, but they've had so many guys leave from that secondary these past couple years. They've got to address it. Um, Tyson Alulu, Chris Wormley out on the defensive line, kind of like depth there, but, this is a team that historically has been deep on the defensive line, so they don't want to lose sight of that. Linebacker, Devin Bush and Miles Jack are out. They brought in Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts. Yeah, I don't know.
They also lost Spillane. They lost Cam Sutton, but they brought in Patrick Peterson.
Yeah, I think, it's offensive line for sure is at the top. And then they do need help elsewhere. Yeah, I guess it's like, so if you're wanting to get the offense right, you do the offensive line because you got the young quarterback, you got the running back that should be a workhorse, you got a good tight end already, you have prospects at wide receiver, but yeah, maybe you make wide receiver a higher priority because you're saying, hey, the offense is this close, let's get them over the hump, and then you can do the rest defense.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that strategy. Okay. Well, that's all I got for that, man. That gets us through our AFC, unless you have any final notes there, James.
I think we hit all my notes there.
Okay. Well, here, let's kick it over then. Let's do our question of the week. And so I told you earlier I wanted to talk about John Elway a little bit more. It sounds like you got some information that I'm going to want to hear, but the question of the week is just simply, was it the right move by Denver to not extend John Elway's contract? And I've got some mixed thoughts on this. Um, you know, I think on the one hand, you got to look as he's like a legend in Denver. He won two Super Bowls as a player,
Wait
came
a
back
minute.
to the
But
front office.
before we go to before
Oh,
you ask
yeah,
the
yeah,
question of the week, I just saw an article,
yeah.
and I'm gonna say this. Did you hear about Tyreek Hill's comments?
Oh, you know what? Ah, I was gonna hit that in the news. That was like one of the ones, and I didn't write it down.
Yeah, I was looking
That
back
that's
for
a
my
that's a puff
article.
piece thing that I would hit because yeah. But go ahead, tell me, hit it up, man.
So
Yeah.
apparently, Tyreek Hill, who will be 31 when his contract runs out after the 2025 season, said, quote, this was on, what was he on? I can't even tell what he's on. I don't know what he's on. But anyways, I'm going for 10 seasons, man.
Yeah, the Barry Sanders.
I'm going to finish out this contract with the Dolphins, and then I'm going to call it quits. I want to go into the business side. I want to do so many things in my life, bro. So I really want to get into like the gaming space. I really want to get huge in that, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm using my platform creating a gaming team which isn't hasn't launched yet. It should launch by the end of this month. I'm going to just sign like different content creators, different athletes. I just been working that talking to different sponsors.
Yeah, I thought the gaming part of it was interesting.
Wow. So yeah, so curious if you want to change question of the week before we go to your question of the week.
Well, we can do a bonus question because it sounds like you got a bonus question.
Well, no, no, no. We could go with
I want to talk about Elway, but
okay,
let's talk about
let's
both.
talk about Elway.
Let's
We'll
talk
talk
about
about
both.
both of them because
Okay. So, yeah,
it
so
has been
I'll
a
ask you
trend.
the Elway question, and then you can ask me your Tyreek Hill question. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right. So, with Elway, whether or not it was the right move for Denver to let him go. And what I was saying is that it's conflicting for me because he is a legend in Denver, having won two Super Bowls as a player, coming back to the front office and getting them a win as like their GM slash executive, whatever his position was. But at the same time, ever since Peyton Manning left, that team has been a disaster. And um, and so I understand why maybe you would want him out because they've been so bad for a while now. But my whole thought of it was that because he's a legend in Denver, even though like it kind of got tarnished at the end, you're not going to take away those Super Bowl rings. They're always going to be there. And in the last couple seasons, they've already basically stripped him of all of his power anyhow. He was no longer in control of personnel moves or, they had a GM, they had all these other things going on. He was really just a consultant for the team at this point. And so for me, I thought you should keep him there. You finally kind of like got him to where he really belonged, and you could use that legendary status as something that's good for the brand and good for the team building without him having to be a decision maker. And so to me, I just thought it's like, it'd be like the Lions, we don't have Super Bowl wins, but it's like, it'd be like the Lions like burning the bridge with Barry Sanders. It's like,
Which they
dude,
did for a number of years.
yeah,
So
but it's just like, you can't do that. You need those guys because it's like all about, you know, he did a lot of good for the team and you don't want to lose that. And so there's some legacy stuff there. It just I don't know. I thought they messed up doing it the way they did it. And then if they were going to do it this way, I thought there should have been a bigger public formal departure of like maybe he's retiring and we're going to do a big celebration for him and let him ride off into the sunset. This was kind of like a shameful backdoor, don't let it hit you on the ass on the way out kind of thing that I didn't like it much. And I think Elway was as graceful as he could be about it, saying that he'll always be available if the team needs him for anything and whatever else. But it just, I don't know. I thought they fudged it up, my opinion, man. What'd you think?
so I don't think they did.
Okay.
I'm going to read you a couple things from a couple articles that I just pulled up. So, as an outside consultant deal was about to expire last month, Elway initiated a meeting with Broncos first-year owner and CEO Greg Penner. The result was Elway amicably departed from the Broncos in a formal capacity. Elway's quote to some news channel, to 9 News in Denver. I've enjoyed the relationship with the Broncos for a long time. I told Greg I'd be happy to be a resource for him and help him in any way that I can. I just wanted the flexibility.
Okay.
They're in great hands. I still plan on being around to watch and be a resource for Greg or George if I can. I didn't want an obligation. I'm getting a little older. I wanted to be able to do some things I haven't done. I'm ready to have a flexible schedule.
You could keep him on the payroll and have it be a flexible deal.
Right.
A lot of
But
teams do that with guys.
it seems more like, to me, and this is my perception without being in the room, that they wanted it to be less flexible.
Sure.
And Elway wanted to be flexible, so because they couldn't agree, they agreed to part ways.
Then make it a better departure,
I
Have a
agree with
little
you. I agree 100% with you.
celebrate it a little bit, don't like let it go flying under the radar. And
All
it's
right.
too big of a thing to fly under the radar, but that's what they tried doing with it.
All right. So
Yeah.
So anyone that wants to hit us up and answer that question, go ahead. My question to you, and you've seen more and more instances of this. Like I could name a few back a number of years ago, but nowadays it seems more and more. After like 5-10 years, players are making their money and then walking away from the game.
Okay. You're
So it's
thinking
kind
like
of
Andrew Luck kind of stuff.
Andrew Luck. More recently, Andrew Luck. There was the offensive lineman. I can't remember his name. Like there's like the last like 5 years, there's been a bunch.
Oh, the guy from the Buccaneers that just retired last year or whatever.
Yeah, and then you had a couple. You had like in the '90s, Barry Sanders left after 10 years, and then you had Calvin Johnson left after like 10 years. So I think do you think it's becoming, number one, do you think Tyreek Hill really will walk away from the game after his contract expires? Number two, do you think the money that these players are making is causing them to say, I've got enough money, I don't need to play the game anymore? So it's causing more early retirement.
Are they making so much that maybe it's not as good of incentive to keep them around for longer?
Yeah.
Like that's maybe one of the ways you're looking at it or asking.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to ask.
So, I think it's a tough question to answer because the amount of money is going to be different depending on the person. You know, some people, um, there's like they're going to want as much money as possible. And if this is their path to get it, they're going to work it. Some people, like I remember Carson Palmer back in the day with the Bengals when he wanted out and they didn't want to trade him. He was talking about how successful he was financially and he could have retired and maybe made even more money just by going off doing his thing. Um, like different guys are going to look at it in different ways. I do think that they're paid way more than they've ever been, and that could be a factor for some of the guys. Um, I think for Tyreek Hill specifically, there's a couple of things to look at. One of them is his style of play. A lot of his game is based on lightning fast speed. And in 3 years, that might not be there like it is today.
True.
And you got to wonder, is he going to be as polished enough as a receiver to adjust to stay in the game at a high level as a wide receiver? I think he could. I think he's capable. Um, but, then I think the other part of it is if he wants to get into this gaming space, gaming is booming.
Hmm.
And it's also, because it's booming, becoming highly competitive. And so, does he have the resources and the wherewithal, like the expertise to like really have an impact in that space? It sounds like he thinks he does, and maybe 3 years of developing that, maybe that ends up being his passion, and he definitely, at that point doesn't need the money from the NFL, and so, but yeah, like the bigger overall picture is the pay getting so big that maybe that's contributing to shorter careers. I don't know. It's hard to answer that, man. What do you think?
So I don't think I purposely left this off because I didn't want to lead you this way.
Sure.
And I think I think yes, there's a possibility that Tyreek Hill would truly walk away after 2025. I don't think it's as much the pay that's getting too big, but as we learn more about the brain and what happens to the brain in
Oh,
a football game,
yeah.
I think the knowledge and in combination of the money they're making is disincentivizing longer careers.
Yeah, no, I think that's a better way of looking at it is the health part of it combined with the money. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, that definitely I would say would have a higher correlation with people throwing in the towel earlier. But I think the health is a big factor.
Hmm.
I think the money for sure helps, and it's just one of those things it's you know if you're not worried about the health thing, well then money. If you're only looking at money, it's like maybe you want as much as you can get your hands on. But you know, I think a lot of these guys care about their health, and then at some point they say, well, I've got enough money. I don't need to keep making more. I got 10 million, or I got 20 million, or I got 30 million, and I'd like to enjoy spending that money instead of being a freaking couch potato because I'm brain dead or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that that's the right way of looking at it is, the injury brain component in combination with the money.
Hmm.
Getting all fucking serious on me, James. Getting all serious. To end the show at that, holy cow.
Of course.
You could have started with that. All right, well, hey, no, that's cool, man. It's no, it's good to ask that question, and it's good maybe to at some point bring it up again. So, all right, well, for tonight, man, you got any other closing thoughts?
No, that was it.
Okay. Well, hey, anybody who's watching, we hope you like the show. We do this every week, usually on Fridays. I know the video doesn't get out there till Saturday, but still, hit us up, play Name That Stadium, answer a question of the week, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. All right, James, it was good, man. I'll catch you later.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.